Um, Hey everyone, welcome to Talk with Onye. I am your host Onye, and here we interview entrepreneurs, business owners, professionals, authors, creators, and much more. So to stay ahead of all of our upcoming interviews, hit the subscribe button and ring the notification bell. So today we have an exceptional author and the visionary founder of a movement known as State of Loc Nation, a community of individuals who have chosen to embrace the beauty of locks. Our guest Christina is here to share her journey. So without wasting much of your time, let's get right into it. So hey Christina, how are you doing today?
Good afternoon. How are you? And
I'm
thank you for
good.
having me on your platform.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It's a privilege to have you here. I know you've been driving for like 15 hours from. I mean, how has that been? How are you recuperating?
It was a turnaround from Georgia to New York, and then back from New York. So it was long, but the scenery was beautiful. I get to think a lot clearer. So I don't enjoy driving, but I do enjoy driving. But I'm back now, so it's time to like get back in the swing of things. My reason of going was I was trying to get to the United Nations because we submitted our Declaration of Independence, and just working towards getting a seat there, so that we can start working on some kind of collaborations or treaties that will benefit and work in our favor, as opposed to constantly fighting and petitioning and all those things, and nothing is being done. Hmm.
Great. So, speaking of which, can you share your journey and how you became involved with the dreadlocks activism movement? I mean,
Um, so
what?
I so how it all started is the question.
Yeah.
Okay. So initially, I was doing real estate, and I just wanted more, right? I'm working hard all year, and then as soon as January comes, we got to start it all over. So I initially started doing locks just like woosah, right? I'm just talking to people. It's not hard work. I get to create art in people's hair, and slowly but surely, I want to say by year two of me doing locks, I realized it's way deeper than that. Just doing hair, just conversating, I realized that there is a spiritual journey for real. I learned so much about my own self in the process, and during some research, I realized, okay, there's an open lane here, right? And when I prayed about it, I felt like I was given a Noah's Ark assignment, but initially it's like you feel like it's been done already, so how is it possible that this is here again? But just steady listening to those inner knowings, it just led me here.
That's interesting. So, what are the, let's say, common misconceptions about or myths about dreadlocks have you encountered, so far?
Well, there's several discrepancies about locks. One, some people get fired because of their locks. Some people automatically assume that you use drugs or you're a part of drugs. Some would just assume that you're a rebel. You got family who would be hard on their family for choosing to do locks, thinking it's messy or it's messing up a person's hair. When in all actuality, locks is linked to spirituality. And I wrote a book about that as well on Amazon. But just like you see a woman with a hijab, what is it? How the Muslims with the covering or the Jewish with
Yeah.
their cap. hijab, and you have people who wear their cross. When you see these artifacts of faith, you unconsciously would have respect, right? So you see it and you're like, okay, this is a spiritual person, and you kind of let them be. When my goal in all of this is for public awareness to understand that when you see locks, that should be the same feeling, right? Locs is our artifact of faith, is linked to the Nazirite vow, and people who read the Bible know much about it, right? So it's the same thing. It's just it's our responsibility to let the world know that that's what it is, and we need to stop that discrimination because that's not the case. It's linked to spirituality. That's what the journey is that we go on.
Hmm. Okay. Okay. So in the cases where you mentioned that, people often think that people who on looks have some sort of drug issues, or they just feel like, why would someone go to mess up their hair? You know, how do you think, say, family or the society, or say professionals, business owners, or people can create an accepting environment for people who have locks? I mean, within the family, within the society, within the organization.
Yeah. Okay, so that's three parts. So, okay, so on a personal level, a person can address that by questioning them own self and saying, why do I have a problem with a person with locks, right? Because oftentimes when there's a conflict within your own thoughts, is a conflict within your own self, right? Because you can't really it's almost like an insecurity. You can't judge a person based off of the spiritual choice that they made because it's only making them right, right? They're operating in right. They're going through the journey to become a better person. So how could you have a problem with that? When it comes to the workforce, when a person is on their spiritual journey with locks, one, it shows loyalty for one. It shows a level of endurance, right? To be able to endure society's views and they still stood on what they spiritually believe. To me, those are all the qualifications for an awesome employee, right? You know, that most employers are looking for a loyal, consistent person that does a good job. Those are proper signs of that. In terms of family, a lot of times, again, we're back to insecurity where family members unsung have a desire to do it, but they just was fearful to do it. And now you see the family member is doing it. Instead of tearing them down, m- think about what you're about to say and support it. Because a lot of times most family members will talk down on it only because they don't understand and they have questions. So if they don't understand and they have questions, that just means that you have lack of knowledge. That's not the other person's downfall for taking that step to make a choice. Anytime you get a no in real estate, they used to teach anytime you get a no is just because the other person didn't have enough information to say yes. And a lot of times people will endure their family members' negative comments on it, watch them for about 2, 3 years, and then guess what? That family member now has locks or natural hair, right? So we were faced with all those insecurities, and it wasn't about the person choosing to get locks, it was about the person saying it insecurity. So if a person takes that extra step to think about what they're going to say before reflecting their own shortcomings on a person, I think that we'll be in a better space.
Hmm. Yeah. So apart from, you mentioned the Declaration of Independence. So apart from that, what other strategies have you implemented, in order to promote and raise awareness for the acceptance of dreadlocks?
So we we reveal the kingdom of Locs. Nazarite vow continue. That's another book as well on Amazon. That one is in the Library of Congress now. We have been individually recording our stories with this organization called Story Corp. That's here in, they're all over, but the one that we're going to is out of the Atlanta Museum. And once the Loc Nationite shares their personal family story, then that gets sent to the Library of Congress as well as the African American Museum as well. So, and then not to mention all the individual people that are now sharing their stories on YouTube, and down to even changing what we know locks to be, right? Because dreads is dreadful. It's the short word of dreadful, and there's nothing dreadful about the process that is going. And so the name change is even an initiative and a movement to properly call it what it is.
Hmm. Okay. So, when I first got to know about you and your cause, I was just wondering, like, why would you um decide to go into a cause that's so, would I say, controversial? So what keeps you, alive? Why do you keep on keeping on, even though it has so many um views? People have so many views about the issue of people who on locks.
One, because after hearing all the different stories with my clients, I realized that it is discrimination, right? And people would typically say, "Oh, worry about you and yours, worry about your family, worry about, you know, a self." And I realized that I just can't do that, right? Because in order to worry about just me and mine, I have to worry about you and yours, because mine will have to be in the same world as yours. And once we see that we're singing the same story from the 1900s, the 1800s, even down to this day, the story is the same. Clearly, those efforts, even though we made small monumental steps, I don't want my kids talking the same thing from the past. I don't want your kids talking about the same thing from the past. We all individually work so hard not to make that happen, right? And this is all I think about. So it's not like I chose this. I feel like I've been chosen to do it. Because even if I say nobody cares, I'm not even going to focus on it, I'm going to just look up something else to do, I'm not happy there. And then when I get back to this, I say, all right, God, what you want me to do? Because clearly this is what it is, right? Because I even was in 4 car accidents trying not to be involved with it. And when God has a way of getting your attention, like, you better just listen. And I'm obedient. Faith is like a mustard seed. All I can do is take the steps that I'm led to do, and here we are.
Hmm. So, what's it's it takes some sort of courage, a lot of courage, to do what you're doing, right? So, what advice would you have for entrepreneurs or people out there who want to embrace their individualism, in their individuality, express themselves? What advice do you have for them?
My advice to them is to do it, right? If those are your silent thoughts, listen to them. Everybody had to go through that journey, right? Of meeting that inner child. And what that looks like is like staying committed to being the better person, understanding who you are, right? So that requires unlearning and relearning. Unlearning what everybody taught you is supposed to be, unlearning, oh, you're supposed to sound like this, you're supposed to look like this, you're supposed to do this. Get all of that out of your mind. Cry about it if you need to. write about it if you need to, paint if you need to, like whatever, find out what that soothing thing is for you. And then understand, okay, I like this, I like that, I like this. Okay, God, I don't know where I'm supposed to go. Understand, I pray all the time for clarity, wisdom, and discernment. Those are my three cores: clarity, wisdom, and discernment. Because with that, when you're in a world of so many different perspectives and so many, it's information overload, right? It's hard
Yes.
to see clear. So that gives you the clarity, discernment to understand that that's the way I'm supposed to go. And my courage comes from the practice of faith, right? Every time you go against your first mind, you say, I should have listened to myself. I knew better. So I caught myself saying that. And I was like, you know what? Instead of me apologizing for not listening to myself, let me make a practice of listening to myself, right? And every time I'm about to do something, I'm like, no, I'm this way. I'm like, nope, I'm gonna follow my first mind. So I kept doing that until it was natural. I don't need an explanation. I don't need to know why. I don't need to see nothing. All I know is I got a gut feeling I'm supposed to do this, and I just do it. And now that voice is so much louder that I feel like God is my best friend at this point. So that allows me to have so much courage because He will never steer me in the wrong direction. You know what I'm saying? So I
Wow.
don't have to
Yeah.
second guess it. So that's the
Yeah.
practice, that's the work. Because you have
Yeah. So
choices. He said, I will either, you can either listen to me or you can go on your own understanding, right? So every time you don't listen to yourself and you go on your own understanding, then you kind of made that choice. So you're going to get a lesson which you learn from, as opposed to a blessing which you would enjoy. But either way, you're still winning, right? You just got to choose: do I want the pain or do I want the blessing? Those are the
yeah.
only options.
So
You know.
your book
Good.
revealed your book, right?
Uh-huh.
I know you've told me the story of how you just said someone, it was such like you were just talking to someone and you're like, okay, I'm going to write a book, right? So can you tell us
Mhm.
the story one more time? And I
Okay.
wanted to know if it was still the same mindset of, if something comes to your head, why don't you do it? Or did you kind of have a little bit of thoughts, you know you really wanted? Were they you know barriers to writing this book, or did you just come to your head and you just started doing it?
So when I do my lock services with my clients, there's something that happens when you're playing with somebody's hair. They go into a deep thought. They want to discuss their problems and all that stuff, right? It's like a sister and brother relationship. So I noticed that happens, and I went and I got my life coaching certificate because if they're opening up, I want to be able to pour back into them. And it's through those life coaching sessions while I'm doing their hair, I find that most people have the same desire to build something, right? They already know what it is, but there's something holding them back. It's their own mental thoughts that's holding them back, right? Of the doubt, not knowing what it looks like, and all that. So, me being accountability, I'll tell them, okay, you want to write a book? Go ahead. Like, I am the cheerleader that you don't have in your circle, right? And then a lot of times when people are afraid to make that step, you're hit with a whole bunch of excuses. I don't have time. Oh, I don't know what to write about. I don't have enough money. I don't this, I don't that. And I said, well, I'm a single mom with 3 kids. I'm in the salon with you all the time. If I happen to write the book before you come back next month, then it's really about you, right?
Yeah.
Because we can make the time that we want for what we want, right? Just like you block out a certain amount of time because you're going to work, you can block out that same amount of time like if you're going to school, right? It's all about what you want to do. So, but you have to say, all right, I want to get this done. I want it done by this particular date. Those dates is what make it real. So I
Yeah.
want it done by this particular date. Okay, how long is it going to take me to do XYZ with everything else I have on my calendar to make me hit that date? What you don't want to do is change that deadline. Don't change it, don't push it. Do everything you have to do to meet that deadline. Because if your supervisor said, "Hey, I need this report by Friday," you're going to stay up all night to make sure you get that done by Friday. So you just got to apply those same work habits to the things that you want to do and stick with it. If you're late, penalize your own self, right?
Mm.
If you missed the day you were supposed to do something and now you're in the next day, you double up so you could get back on schedule. Like that, having a schedule and organizing yourself for me is monumental in everything that I do. If I have no date, it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
That's just it. It has to have a date and I have to stick to that date. And I
Wow.
think that that would be helpful to other
Yeah.
people, and that's discipline.
Yeah. It takes a lot of discipline.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
But you are the one who can do it. And if
Yeah.
you don't do it, you're the one who didn't do it. So it's just a
Yeah.
matter of making a choice.
Hmm. So, when you decided to write the book, right? Can you tell us a little bit about what the book, preaches, what the book is about?
So, Locke's link to spirituality is explaining the originality of Locke's and how it's in several different cultures. I even put the process that you go through when you start Locks, and how once you start Locks, you start questioning, who am I? You feel like your world is crumbling, right? And then you realize people that you were in your life for X amount of time start leaving for silly reasons, and you're brokenhearted because they're leaving. But then you remember something, a voice says people come in your life for a reason, a season, and a lifetime. So you find appreciation there, because when you're going through these steps, these people come in your life so that you can create boundaries, so that you can learn from those lessons, right? But it we learn through pain, so it had to been painful. But they are a mirror of your inner thoughts, right? Those experiences are a mirror of your inner thoughts. So as soon as you learn whatever lesson that is, they leave. That's why it seems like they leave for a silly reason, right? And so once they leave for that reason, that means that you leveled up, you have a new boundary. People can't reach your heart like that because you went through that experience. You know what it feels like. So with that boundary, they can't even cross there no more. So now you reach a new level, which I like to say new level, new devil, right? So when you get to the next level, you're going to go through other experiences, and it keeps on happening until you reach your higher self.
Hmm.
And it's a beautiful experience. And then once you get to that place where you know you, like you authentically know you, there's no one who can come in your circle and manipulate you. There's no one in your circle that can do this and that. Now it becomes each one reach one, teach one, and you're able to share with others so that they now can reach their higher self.
Yeah, but do we really get to that point where we really know ourselves? Like, is there
I
is
think
there that?
so. It's never ending. It's never learning. But when you get to the point of loving you, right?
Hmm.
And not
Yeah.
second guessing. I used to be insecure and quiet and walk in a room and find me a corner somewhere and wish that I had courage just to speak to people, right? I was that person and I hated it. And then maybe I will go to the bar, get me a drink just so I can communicate with people. And I had to tell myself, well, if you can do it when you had a drink, then it's in you, right? So then I had to discipline myself again and say, pretend that you had a drink and just speak to people, right? So now it's not an issue. If I want to talk to you, I'm going to talk to you. But those
Yeah.
are levels that we had to go through in order to, right? So if it's a confusion, if it's something that don't feel good, if you feel like you're supposed to be doing something better, whatever that vision is, it's yours. Create it. You don't need nobody permission. Sometimes you do something and you be like, "Do you like it? Does that sound right?" And
Yeah.
people be like, "Oh no,
Constantly
why you
needing
doing that? That's
approval.
stupid." Guess what you do? You go and you put it back. This stupid. You only ask one person. But if you
Mm-hmm.
say, I don't care if you don't like it, I love it, and keep going, guess what? Eventually everybody starts loving it. They say
Yeah.
there's a whole bunch of followers and so few leaders. And if you know
Yeah.
within self that you are a leader, then of course you're not going to get the response right away because they don't know what it looks like because you're the leader. You have to
Yeah.
show them what it looks like. And then eventually they'll be like, I love that. I knew you would. It just needed to take some time.
Yeah.
Communication is like the process of a plant. You plant the seed, but you ain't going to get the rose bush right away. It got to go through cycles, right? So it looks like, okay, you talking to somebody and they're like, I don't know what you're talking about. That's what say, when they say, when you talk to somebody, be the bigger person, it being the bigger person is not to take the abuse from them. It's just to understand what of level that you're talking to, right? So if I'm talking to somebody and they're looking at me like they have no clue what I'm talking about, in my head, I know that I'm talking to somebody for the first time with this information. So I'm planting the seed and I leave it there. Cut the conversation short. If I'm talking to another person and they heard it before, then I know I'm here to water it, right? If
Yeah.
I go and I'm talking to somebody and then they say, I keep hearing this. What is that about? I know I'm
Mm,
here to just water it again, maybe add some sun to it, but I leave
mm,
it there. Now, if I talk to somebody and they go, I keep hearing that, let me look this up. That's the one that I'm going to keep talking to because now you're
mm,
open to receive what I'm here to share with you, right?
mm.
And then you kind of know when the conversation is over because it just kind of disconnects or whatever, right? Okay, so now you were filled and that person was filled. It was an even exchange in communication. Guess what happens now? That person goes home and they start looking it up, looking it up, looking it up. They start feeding their minds with all kind of stuff. They have just elevated. You did your part. That's it. A lot of times we plant the seed with a person and expect to take them all the way through. Then we're frustrated because we see it in them, but they're not doing the things they're supposed to. It
Yeah.
was not your role. You were supposed to only plant the seed and they will get the information somewhere else. And then when we're having a conversation where you understand what I'm saying and you can give me feedback and I'm giving you feedback, then we are in the same room of like-minded individuals. We'll be evenly fed. And then you go, that's the one that you talk to for 3, 4 hours, right? So,
Yeah.
and then now each of us have a responsibility at that point to go back to the seed level and continue the process again till we hear.
Hmm.
That's the cycle that we're supposed to be on, right?
Yeah. And it
Yeah.
takes a lot of time, right?
It really don't. You fit it in your day. How many
Hmm.
times you just go to the store and you randomly had a conversation? That was it. How many times you got in a car ride and you had a conversation with a stranger? That's the seed. You understand? We're like bees out here with each other. It's not an intentional, I'm gonna go out and I'm gonna talk to somebody. It just
Mm.
happens throughout the day. It happens throughout the day. And sometimes you overhear something that you like, huh, I like that. That was for you. If you were the one sharing the information, that was for that person. But it happens throughout the day. It's not nothing that has to be forced.
Hmm.
So
Well,
day to day
you,
time,
yeah,
you know
yeah,
what I'm saying?
yeah,
It's
yeah.
beautiful. It's a beautiful journey,
Yeah,
honestly.
it is. It is. I'm actually enjoying it, enjoying the way it sounds right now. Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. Yes.
Yeah. So what's the next point for State of North Nation? Like what's the next plan for you?
So I'm working on volume 2 of Reveal the Kingdom of Locs, right? Because I
Hmm.
gotta put some interesting pages in the front. Because the Constitution the Declaration of Independence, all of that is going to be in there as a template because with our community, everybody wants to unite as one, but unfortunately, we have to unite in little circles all together, right? Because your culture and your upbringing may be different than my culture and upbringing, but we still need our villages, but
Mm.
together we can have our clusters. So I'm finishing on volume 2, and then I'm still working on getting a seat in the United Nations so we can get that on paper because we're in their system, right? And because we're in their system, they follow a constitution or a rule book that we need to get our information plugged in there so that we're just as protected as everyone else. And then going forward, we also have the Loc documentary that we're working on as well, which should give a lot more detail prior to Egyptian time, which I think is awesome. And who else? Whatever happens next after that is it should just be a monumental experience, honestly.
Mm.
So
Mm.
it's busy.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
So, what's one piece of advice would you give to entrepreneurs who have dreams? Um, you know, not just ordinary dream. There are dreams that may be accepted by everyone or by the society, but then there are dreams that have some sort of stereotypes, attached to them. What's one piece of advice would you give to anyone who has dreams like that?
Okay, so if you have a dream, then that's awesome. Do it, right? No matter how radical it seems, because that's when they call you the visionary, right? You having this vision because it hasn't been done. You have to pave that way. And if it wasn't for visionaries, we wouldn't have a traffic light. We wouldn't have
Mm.
a refrigerator. We wouldn't have a chair. We wouldn't have houses. We wouldn't have toilets. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
you are that piece that we need in the puzzle of all things. So I would say when you have that dream, you almost have to not care what people think. As long as it's right, as long as you're operating right, as long as you're with good intentions, that has to be the driving force because if it's based off of manipulation or if it's based off of I'm going to take from everybody who believe, then you're on the wrong path and it's a short end, right? But if you want that longevity, you have to operate with integrity, you have to have a vision of right, and everything will fall in its place, right? Because at the end of the day, everything is cause and effect. Everything is you do, you receive, you do, you get karma. Like there's no equation outside of that. So if you have a vision or a dream, then that means that God gave that to you. And if
Mm.
you don't do it, then you're kind of telling God that you're not fit for it and he thought you was. So that's a choice you got to make. Can
Just
you
do
live
it.
with that?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because where do
Yeah.
dreams come from?
Mm. Yeah.
So you are given an assignment. You got something to do.
Do
Don't
it.
worry about
Yeah.
how you gonna fit in. Just answer the call, and literally, he will move mountains to make it happen.
Yeah, yeah. So just start along the way, things will begin to make sense.
Yes, because literally, as bad as I want things to happen now, it I would only get a piece of it,
Hmm.
right? And then once I'm in that piece, I'm like, okay, that makes sense. Because if I had made that bigger jump, it would have all crumbled. Or
Hmm.
now that I took this piece, I was given some information that kind of altered my step or altered my thinking into a better process, right? So take the baby steps. Take the baby steps. Take the baby steps because you're growing at the same time, right? You think something, you do your research, you apply it, there's trial and error. Then you take out of the trial and error, you learn from the mistakes and you know what works. That's the recipe that you're going to need to build on every level. So if you skip that step or you don't even try, then how do you climb up?
Yeah. Hmm.
How? You need to go through that so that you have the recipe. You're confident at that point. Why? because nobody had to tell you to do it. You've been through it. You lived through experience. So that's a different confidence altogether, right? And then you
Yeah.
take that whole system that you lived through, and then you apply it to the next step, and you apply it to the next step, and then when you get to the next step and you feel like, okay, this is not working no more, you should then be around a different room of people who can then feed into you, and you can alter it, trial and error. You just build it bigger and you keep on going that way.
Yeah, yeah. So before we close for today, I mean, what's if looking back, given the level you've come, the amount of growth so far, looking back at your younger self, say 18-year-old self, what's one advice would you like give to yourself?
So, I would have told myself to wait. Originally, I just wanted to be a home mom. I just wanted to be married, make my husband some sandwiches while he watched the sports, and he fixed the house, and I give him a list of things to do, and I have 13 kids, right? That's all
Yeah.
I wanted to do, but it didn't play out that way, right? And now that I know what I know, I appreciate every experience that I went through, because all of that helped build me to who I am, to properly prepare me for this. Those tears, those smiles, those disappointments, those shockers, all of that, all of that just kind of molded me into the person that I needed to be when I accepted the assignment that was given to me.
Hmm.
So it's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. Okay. That's good. So thank you so much for being here with us. I mean, I really loved everything you said. I liked especially the part where you said the point. When you begin to grow and grow and grow, and you get to the point of self-loving, right?
Yes,
I really loved, the analogy you gave at that point,
yes.
and it's really what
That's
I want to grow. I think that should be everyone's goal, right? The point where you no longer need, approval from people around you. You can start and, you're confident in what, even though things don't make sense completely, things don't make complete sense, but then you're able to start something else and then later
you know how you fix that? You know how you fix that? And
how.
you know when you have those quiet thoughts, like for some people they'll be like, "Oh, I don't like my forehead. My forehead is too big," or "Oh, my nose is too big. Oh, my ears is too big." You know those thoughts?
Yeah.
Those were not your thoughts. Those were people in your past that's no longer in your life. They planted that in your system, in your psyche, right? And then when they're no longer there, you start bringing it up. So every time that you have those thoughts, that's when the affirmations come in. I am beautiful. I am wise. I am made in God. Whatever you need to say to yourself, right? So what I did, I would say, anytime I heard something, because the ears are open, it has no doors. So anybody can harm you through this, right? So
Yeah.
you have to be your own guard from that. So anytime those thoughts come up, you have to check it right then and there and be like, why did I just say that? I have a beautiful forehead. Whose forehead am I comparing it to? This will always be mine. And if you don't like it, so what? This is mine, it's always gonna be mine, right? So anytime you have that, and it's not an overnight thing, you just gotta keep saying it every time. And every time you put a positive with that negative thought, after a while you realize how many times you say something negative to yourself. You realize you beating your own self up, right? So after a while, you realize you start having to use the affirmations less and less, because you
Mm,
dug out those negative thoughts, you replace them with love, right?
mm,
And then
yeah.
you're at a place where now, once you did all that healing and crying and writing and painting and all that, you protect that at that point. So now if you come across somebody who say something negative, you check it right then. So I'll
Yeah.
have somebody that'll say, "Oh, how old are you? Because I want to know how long I'm gonna have you." Oh, you try to be negative. I am beautiful. I am wise. I am made in God's image. What are
Yeah.
you talking about? I am beautiful. I am wise. You understand? And then after a
Yeah.
while, it teaches them how to protect their self as well.
Mm.
See how you
Yeah.
do that? But you
Yeah.
gotta address it as soon as the thought is there. You don't put it off. As soon as that negative thought come up, you address it right then and there.
Yeah.
And over time with consistency, you won't even need to do it like that.
Mm. Thank you so much. Thank you
You're
so much.
welcome.
Thank
You're welcome.
you. I mean, you dished out a lot of things to us today. And I really thank you for being here with us. I really thank you for being here with us. So thank you so much. Guys, if you want the book, Revealed, the Kingdom of Locs, Nazareth, Vow Continues. I'm going to drop the link in the description to get the book on Amazon. And people who you just go check it out, you're going to really love, what she has to say. So thank you so much for
Thank you
being
for
here with
having
us.
me.
So
Okay.
bye.
Thank you.
Yeah.